Good evening. My name is Doug Hornock, and I'm the pastor at Mid-Valley Bible Church, and I want to welcome you again to our virtual prayer meeting. 2 days ago, I was reminded of something special that I observed almost 22 years ago when I was in Orlando, Florida. What jarred my thinking and memory was the reporting on the news that Annie Glenn, the wife of former astronaut and U.S. Senator John Glenn, had died in a nursing home in Minneapolis. She was 100 years old, had been married to John Glenn for 73 years. He was 96 years old when he died about 4 years ago. Now, John Glenn was truly an American hero. He was a veteran of World War II, the Korean War. Later, he joined the space program and became the first U.S. astronaut to circle the Earth 3 times in a Mercury space capsule known as Friendship 7. After he retired as an astronaut, he served in the United States Senate for 25 years. And here's where his story gets to me. After he retired from the Senate, on the 26th of October 1998, John Glenn went back into space for 9 days aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery, becoming the oldest person at 77 years old to go back into space. Now here's where my part of the story comes in. The day the Space Shuttle Discovery launched from Cape Canaveral, I was in Orlando, Florida, representing the Christian Medical and Dental Association at a convention of the American Academy of Pediatricians. I was staying with a good friend of mine, and I knew that the space shuttle was going to be launched from Cape Canaveral. And I asked my friend Walt if it could be seen from Orlando, which is about 50 miles away. And he said, absolutely. And he told me the best place to go for viewing. He gave me a pair of binoculars. And so I went to the field, and there were probably about 40 cars there doing exactly what I was there doing. Well, I turned on the radio, and so I knew exactly when the shuttle was going to launch, and I listened to the countdown, 3, 2, 1, booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery with a crew of 6 astronaut heroes and 1 American legend. And I watched John Glenn as he was launched into space. And it was amazing. I kept looking through the binoculars till that space shuttle was completely out of sight. And when I put the binoculars down, I was the only person left in the field. Now, some of you are probably asking, what in the world does that have to do with our prayer time? Well, today, May 21st, is 40 days from Easter Sunday. And on the Christian calendar, this day is known as the Feast of Ascension. It's where Christians around the world celebrate the day Christ returned to heaven. Now, because that, along with so many other observances, have been abused by the organized church, we Protestants tend not to observe it. And I think that's a bit unfortunate. I want you to listen to the description of that ascension from Acts chapter 1. In Acts 1, it says that Jesus presented himself alive to his disciples after he was there on the earth for 40 days. He told them about the kingdom. He told them to go to Jerusalem and wait for the Holy Spirit. He gives them details about the kingdom. And then right after that instruction that he gave to them, Jesus is taken up right before their very eyes. And they keep looking, and they're absolutely spellbound. I want you to listen to Luke's description of that from Acts 1. It says, while the disciples were gazing into heaven as Jesus went up, behold, 2 men stood by them in white robes and said, Men of Galilee, why do you stand looking into heaven? This Jesus, who was taken up from you into heaven, will come in the same way as you saw him go into heaven. Now, Luke 16, which also records the ascension, says this, After the Lord had spoken to them, he was taken up into heaven, and he sat down at the right hand of God. Now here's what I want as our takeaway on this Feast of Ascension. Jesus is coming again. Now for the record, Acts 1 is talking about the second coming of Jesus, not the rapture. But friend, he's coming. And that ought to encourage us. And right now, he's seated at the right hand of the Father. He's overseeing the building of our mansions, and he's interceding on our behalf. He's acting as our defense attorney. And whenever Satan brings charges against us, Satan is reminded that Jesus died for that sin. He says the payment for that offense has been made. Case closed. And so as we go to prayer tonight, let's celebrate the Feast of Ascension and that Jesus is coming back, and that the work of our faithful high priest is something that is going on continually. And we can come into the very presence of God because Jesus Christ is seated at the right hand of the Father. And so with that truth before us, let's go to prayer with confidence.